Welcome, everyone. This is your technical English course, specifically designed for students here at the Faculty of Computer Science at USTHB. I am your instructor, Mrs. Suwan, and today we are going to dive into the core foundations of the English language, parts of speech and sentence structure.
So, here's our plan for today. First, we're going to look at language as a logical system. Then, we'll open up our linguistic toolkit to see all the components. After that, we'll get into the core algorithm, S.V.O, learn how to expand on it, and then we'll wrap it all up into one master framework you can use.
All right, first things first. I want you to completely change how you think about grammar. Forget about boring rules. From now on, I want you to see it as a logical system. It has a strict syntax, just like a programming language.
And this slide just nails it, doesn't it? In English, just like when you're coding, the order of the elements is absolutely critical. Get the order right, and the message compiles perfectly. But if you get it wrong, boom, you get a compilation failure. The message just doesn't get through because the logic is broken.
Okay, so if language is a system, then it has to have components, right? So let's open up our linguistic component library, our toolkit, and take a look at the essential tools you're going to need to build just about any idea.
So here's the whole shebang, our entire toolkit, all started by what they do. You've got the core, the engine that gives it power, modifiers for the details, and so on. Today, we're really going to focus on the two most important parts, the core and the engine.
First up, the core, and that means nouns. I want you to think of nouns as the foundational building blocks of your program. They are your core variables. They name everything you want to talk about, whether they're acting as the subject, the object, or playing other roles.
Okay, next up, we need some power. That's where verbs come in. Verbs are the engine of your sentence. They're the functions that actually do stuff. You've got your action verbs, things like run, write, compile, and then you have your state verbs, which describe a condition, like be, seem, or feel.
All right, so we've got our core components, nouns as our variables and verbs as our engine. So the big question is, how do we put them together? Let's look at the fundamental algorithm that tells us how to assemble them into a working sentence.
And here it is. This is the base algorithm for pretty much any standard English sentence. S.V.O. Subject, then verb, then object. The actor performs an action on the receiver. It's so important that you remember the subject always comes first. This sequence is non-negotiable if you want to be clear. And here's a perfect example of what happens when you break that algorithm. Technology gives us tools. Okay, that's a valid execution. The meaning is crystal clear. But what happens if you swap the variables? Tools gives us technology. See? You get a fatal error. The output is basically nonsense because you've violated the syntax.
So, this basic SVO structure, that gives us our fundamental unit, the simple sentence. The formula is right there on the screen. One subject plus one verb equals one complete independent idea. That's the absolute minimum you need for a thought that can actually compile. It's like one clean, executable line of code.
Okay, so we've got the basic algorithm down. Now, how do we expand on it? Let's check out how to add more modules of information and how to create variations, like questions and negative statements.
So a really easy way to expand our SVO array is by just tacking on some adverbials. Now, think of these as optional parameters you can add to give more context. They add details like when or where something happened, and you usually just append them right after the core SVO structure is finished. But what if you have multiple details you want to add? Well, there's actually a golden rule for the most efficient and natural-sounding order. We call it the SVOMPT pipeline. You start with subject, verb, object, and then you add manner, place, and time. If you follow this sequence, your sentences will almost always sound perfect.
Let's walk through a real example so you can see it in action. She, that's our subject. Studied, the verb. English, the object. Okay, now for the pipeline. Seriously, that's the manner. At school, that's the place. And yesterday, that's the time. See? The sequence flows perfectly, and the meaning is incredibly clear. So how do we switch things up and ask a question? Well, we basically invert the flow. What we do is inject an auxiliary verb, something like do or does, right at the very beginning before the subject. And that one little change completely alters the execution from a statement into a question. And for negative sentences, it's a really similar logic. We just inject a negation module, like don't or doesn't, right between the subject and the main verb. But, and this is important, notice that there's a special override for the verb to be. In that case, the not gets injected after the verb, as in, she is not tired. All right, we have covered a lot of ground. We've looked at the components, the base algorithm, and all the operational overrides. So now, let's pull everything together into a single, powerful framework. Think of it as your personal cheat sheet for English syntax.
And here it is, the entire system, all on one slide. This is your master syntax framework. It's got the S.V.O base algorithm, the SVOMPT pipeline for adding all those extra details, and the overrides for questions and negations. Seriously, this is your go-to guide for engineering correct English sentences from now on. Initialization complete. You've got the theory, you've got the framework. You are now officially ready to test your syntax and start building some powerful sentences. Thank you all for watching today's lesson. To truly master these concepts, please head over to the classroom assignment section for some deeper practice and hands-on exercises. I'll see you there.